I took in a number of usually shoddy corridas in the Mexican border towns, frequently rigged and with undersized bulls, and even went to 2 or 3 at the main Plaza Mexico in the capital city, of which I now recall only that they were much better than the ones I had seen along the Rio Grande. But, Hemingway or not, somehow the fever never really seized me back in those days. It was not until the middle 1950s, when I was living in Madrid, that it did. At that time, I had a little green BSA motorcycle, on which, in addition to attending all the fights I could manage in Madrid's Plaza Monumental, I would scoot up and down the Iberian Peninsula, attending fiestas and fairs where multiple corridas would take place on successive days. Valencia, Sevilla, Zaragoza, Pamplona, Valladolid, Alcalá de Henares, and others. I read everything I could find in English or Spanish about the bulls, devised little symbols for keeping notes on the passes each matador made with cape or muleta, and developed a smiling, finger-lifting acquaintance with a number of Spanish aficionados who showed up often at the fights I was attending. That was not the heyday of bullfighting, which had perhaps ended with the death by goring of the incomparable Manolete in 1947. And during my time, the whole spectacle was under the shadow of a recent horn-shaving scandal, which had exposed the practice of shortening and resharpening bulls' horns before a fight, and had caused some of the best-known matadors to retire, at least temporarily, from the ring. I have said I enjoyed the fights. I should say I enjoyed maybe most of them. A few were more or less disasters because of inferior bulls, overcautious toreros, inept kills, gorings, or strong winds that snatched and shoved at the capes and muletas and made decent performance impossible. Others were in general competent and instructive. And if, in the course of 3 or 4 corridas, at each of which 6 bulls were fought and dispatched, you saw 2 or 3 large, utterly brave and dangerous beasts, handled with complete confidence and grace, and killed cleanly by men who were not only matadors but artists, you saw very clearly, at least I did, why you liked bullfights. Fittingly, in the last round of fights I saw before leaving Spain, the 1955 Fiesta de San Isidro in Madrid, with a corrida each day for a week, I witnessed what I'm certain was the most daring, skillful, and lovely handling of a bull in all of my limited experience, by a not especially famous Venezuelan matador named Cesar Giron. I have written about it elsewhere, and won't go into detail here, but it was close to perfection, worthy of the tears that shone on the cheeks of many cheering spectators, perhaps including myself. I have seen no more bullfights anywhere since those of that week. The one bull and the one matador and their superbly executed dance of death seemed to have satisfied whatever urge it was that had led me to the corridas in the first place. They were enough. In terms of bulls and the men who raise them, and those who fight them, Tom Lee had far more knowledge than I ever came close to. He had been exposed to corridas young in Juarez, just across the Rio Grande from his native El Paso. But, characteristically, when much later he began to see them as material for writing and art, he set about learning all that could be learned about their world. He traveled up and down Mexico attending fights, made friends with bull breeders, impresarios, matadors, and their cuadrillas of helpers, and even got to paint a portrait of gaunt, tragic-faced Manolete in his suit of lights, while that diestro was waiting to go in the ring. And all the while his quick and acquisitive mind was soaking in the history and lore of bullfights. This familiarity poured into The Brave Bulls, the first and most successful of his 4 novels, and often considered the best one. He observed later that when he began on the book, he knew exactly what the first and last sentences would say, and all he had to do was fill in what went between. What went between was the account of a crucial period in the life of Luis Bello, renowned matador de toros, with many fine insights into Mexico itself and the world of bulls.